They said, "I do." And in those 3 words, the world seemed to stop. Wang Yibo and Zhan, 2 names that have lived in the hearts of millions, finally stood side by side, not as co-stars, not as colleagues, but as soulmates bound together by love. It wasn't a drama. It wasn't a script. It was real life. And the internet, as expected, could not contain itself. The moment the news broke, hashtags shot to the very top of every trending list imaginable. From Weibo to Twitter, from fan cafes to global news outlets, one headline echoed louder than any other. They said, "I do. Wang Yibo and Zhan'S fairytale wedding breaks the internet." But how did it all unfold? How did 2 men, whose journey began in the dazzling yet complicated world of entertainment, arrive at this breathtakingly tender moment? It all started quietly. For months, whispers had circulated that Yibo and Zhan were spending more time together away from the cameras. Fans noticed matching items, caps, bracelets, even sneakers, that seemed to tell a story words never could. And then came the silence. The kind of silence that usually means something is happening behind closed doors. Little did the world know, the silence was preparation. Preparation for a day that would live forever in the memory of not just the couple, but everyone who believed in them. The wedding itself was everything you'd expect from 2 stars who value both intimacy and artistry. It wasn't hosted in a grand ballroom with flashing lights. No, Yibo and Zhan chose something far softer, far more reflective of who they are. A secluded garden, wrapped in twinkling lights that looked like stars had descended to bless the occasion. White roses lined the aisle, and petals floated in the evening air as though nature itself wanted to witness their vows. The guest list was small: family, closest friends, and a handful of colleagues who had walked alongside them in their journeys. There were no reporters, no flashing cameras. Just love. Pure, unfiltered love. And when Zhan walked down the aisle, the entire place fell silent. He wore a suit that was understated yet elegant, the kind of style that matched his quiet grace. His smile carried both nerves and joy, the kind of expression only someone about to marry the love of their life could wear. At the end of the aisle stood Yibo, no longer the cool, untouchable figure the world often saw, but a man whose eyes were fixed on only one person. His usual composure gave way to raw emotion, his lips curving into the kind of smile that was impossible to fake. When their hands met, it was as though 2 halves of a story finally found their missing chapters. The vows were simple. Not grand speeches rehearsed for drama. Just heartfelt words, spoken softly, but strong enough to shake hearts across the world. Zhan's voice trembled as he promised to walk beside Yibo through every storm and every sunrise. And Yibo, in his own steady way, promised to be Zhan's anchor and his wings, his safe place and his wild adventure all in one. Then came the words that sealed it all. "Do you take him to be your forever?" "I do." "Do you promise to love him, come what may?" "I do." And with that, they leaned in, sealing their vows with a kiss that was both gentle and powerful. Applause erupted. Some cried. Some laughed. And somewhere across the world, fans screamed into their pillows, unable to believe that this was reality, not fiction. But reality it was. Photos, though not released by paparazzi but shared gently by a trusted guest, began flooding the internet. One captured Zhan's hand tenderly resting on Yibo's shoulder. Another caught Yibo laughing, his usual serious expression replaced with unrestrained happiness. And then, of course, the most iconic image of all, the kiss. The image that would be printed on posters, shared across timelines, and etched forever into the digital memory of this generation. Fans, naturally, went wild. Some wrote that their hearts had exploded into 1,000 butterflies. Others confessed they had never believed in love until that very moment. Hashtags like Fairytale Wedding, Zhan and WangYibo, and simply I do trended worldwide. It wasn't just about 2 celebrities tying the knot. It was about love prevailing. About 2 souls who had faced countless challenges, endless rumors, and 1,000 eyes watching their every move, yet still found the courage to choose each other. The industry, too, reacted. Fellow actors, singers, and directors took to social media to congratulate the pair. with many calling them an inspiration. Some even admitted that watching their journey reignited their own belief in true love. But perhaps the most touching reaction came not from celebrities or fans, but from the families. Witnesses shared that both sets of parents were present, their eyes glistening with quiet pride. For parents to see their children loved so fully, so openly, must have been a blessing beyond words. As the night wore on, laughter filled the air. The couple danced under fairy lights, their movements unchoreographed, raw, and real. At one point, Zhan rested his head against Yibo's chest, and Yibo whispered something that made him smile so brightly, the whole garden seemed to glow. And then, just when everyone thought the evening couldn't be more magical, fireworks lit up the night sky. Not grand, booming fireworks meant to dazzle, but soft, glittering ones that painted the sky in hues of gold and silver, as though even the heavens were celebrating. The couple looked up, their hands intertwined, and for a brief moment, it felt as though time itself had paused just to honor their love. By the time the night ended, the internet had already declared it the wedding of the century. But for Yibo and Zhan, it wasn't about the headlines, the photos, or the trends. It was about a promise. A promise that no matter how loud the world outside became, their love would remain their quiet fortress. They had said, "I do," and in saying it, they reminded millions that love, in its purest form, is worth every risk, every challenge, and every leap of faith. The story of their wedding will be told again and again. It will be written in fan pages, whispered in conversations, and etched in memories. But beyond all of that, it will live where it matters most. In the hearts of two men who dared to love boldly, openly, and unapologetically. So, when the internet says this fairy tale wedding broke records, it's true. But what it really broke were walls. Walls around hearts that had stopped believing in love. Walls around souls who had forgotten that happy endings weren't just for books and movies. Zhan and WangYibo wrote their own ending. Or perhaps, not an ending at all, but the beginning of a new chapter. And as the world continues to celebrate, one truth rings louder than every trending hashtag combined. They said, "I do." And in doing so, they gave all of us a love story to believe in.